I think if we crumble, it will be because of our own demise and our own social, mistakes, not the Fed. That's just my opinion.
And again, I mean, Austin, I like your opinion. So just give me a general thought. Like, I don't think Jerome Powell's listening, but what do you think of like central banks in the last, 8 to 10 years? Has it been good for the market? Is it artificially engineered? Just an opinion.
That it hasn't been good for the market. That is the big question. I just finished a couple of months ago Ray Dalio's new book, where he talks about the cycles that previous world reserve currencies and their economies have gone through. And it's the same thing happening in just a different color over and over again. So this modern monetary theory that we've been living through, where we just print money, we've created in industries that seem indestructible, like the military industrial complex. So is it good? Well, I don't know. That's a very tough question. It got America to the point that it got it to. So it's tough to say it's bad, but is it good for like where we're at now and what we have coming forward, where we might be reaping the repercussions of all that good? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just the classic, what goes up must come down. Nothing goes up forever. No economy goes straight up forever. But the thing about it is this, and this is what I'm hopeful for. I try not to be too cynical, right? Like I try to be a little bit more optimistic, 51% optimistic. And I wonder, is this
Glass
something
is barely half full?
Exactly. Where is this something where, the Dutch and the British did not last more than 150 years as the world reserve currency, and someone knocked them off and we had a big war and blah, blah, blah. Are we headed for that right now with Russia and everything, and China and Taiwan and Ukraine? And are we headed or is this something different? Like, is this actually something different? And I think that's a really tough question to answer. But China is something that like I've been really learning a lot about, just trying to understand their psychology and what they set out to do. Because if you ever all of us know Asian people, but they're very competitive, very hardworking, and I'm stereotyping, but it's true, and it's a good thing. And I think that those characteristics, it's almost going to make it so that they can exploit what's going on in other places, like here in America, where we are actually dealing with the opposite. You know what I mean? More weakness, more softness. And I think that those internal characteristics are what are going to define us in the next 5 or 10 years, more than what the Fed does or anything else like that. I think if we crumble, it will be because of our own demise and our own social, mistakes, not the Fed. That's just my opinion.
No, that's super interesting. Nick, care to chime in on top of that?
Yeah, I love that documentary by Ray Dalio and his team. I thought that documentary was so interesting. I'm a history nerd, so I will always watch stuff like that. Yeah, I love that stuff. The thing is, timing, the Roman Empire, if we want to get really historical, 1,000 years, right? And then the Byzantine Empire, long periods of time. So for me, it's not really as easy as China has been around for a long time, and they've whipsawed up and down. They are a powerhouse. They are kind of on the rise. I mean, don't look at their stock market right now, but they've really excelled in a lot of ways, China. But remember that at one point we thought it was going to be the Japanese, and it didn't happen. So we got to be careful in the fact that, you can buy into the story and say like, oh, the US, but I like to look at just sort of like what we're looking at. The US still dominates. And I know I'm looking in the rear view mirror to a degree, but we still have powerhouse companies. Do we have sort of like, you could get into there's division in the people, like in the documentary and stuff like that, and all of that. I think that's definitely worth mentioning. But I still believe that the U.S. is such a powerhouse and has a definite place in the future. In terms of where would I invest, I still would personally invest in U.S. stocks before I buy Chinese shares or other places, even though you might be getting some great value on them right now.
I would almost be more interested in learning about how to get involved in some of these emerging markets in Africa rather than China. You know what I mean? Just for the sheer upside potential in something like that, where you're still getting China involvement because China is funding all of the infrastructure and all the projects that are going on.
They started investing there,
So it's kind of like you're going a second layer deeper and something like that. And I think you made a great point too, just that the internal stuff is important, but America is still America. And that's kind of what I was saying about like, is this something different where like maybe in the future we don't have this world war that changes everything. The old white dudes get into a room and sit down and write the rules again. Maybe we don't have that. Maybe this is different where we move. I could see us moving into a direction, and I'm curious to know what you guys think about this, of 3 world reserve currencies. You have countries that do business with the dollar, countries that do business with China and their digital dollar, and then maybe Bitcoin as the third, if it becomes that potentially. But I could see that where you have like the 2 worlds operating on one planet, where certain countries just continue to do business in US dollars and digital US Fed dollars, whatever they're called. And then the other countries like Russia and Iran and countries in Africa, they're using the yuan. Curious to know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I'll just chime in just to respond to that. What's interesting is prior to World War II, that was sort of the scenario. After World War II, the U.S. became the sole world power, right? As you guys probably know, if you're a history nerd like me, that became not only reflective of, it was basically fact because all the banks started using just dollars. Before that, it was the pound. The pound was the reign supreme, right? So you've got that, now banks hold the U.S. dollar. I think that it's fair to say that very well could happen. For me as like a trader, like taking it back to like just like how I approach, I just take I know nothing. I just say like, I don't know. Like that's sort of like my go back to phrase. Like, I'm not so sure. I have my opinions. I have my speculations. But when it actually comes to time to place money on it, I'm just going with the flow. One of my oldest, favorite ways to invest when it comes to stocks and just anything is betting on winners, right? I tend to bet on the winner. If China becomes the winner, guess where I'm betting, right? I'm going to switch ships. It's just what it is as a purely logical trader. So, to sort of bring it back to what we're looking at here, like my dollar yen position right now, I'm willing to buy dollar yen because dollar yen right now is a winner. And sometimes I get some criticism because I'm a trend follower. So I am following, I'm going with the flow. I'm not sure what happened to my feed here. Let me see if I can switch assets, if that changes it. But going with the flow, sometimes what that means is that you're the last one to buy. But if you put a stop on your trade, it's going to be fine, right? Because if you're the last one to buy, sure, you might get stopped out. But prior to that, you might have been, an early rider on something, thinking like, oh, this is too high, don't buy here. You buy it and it just runs for another 400 pips, whatever, right? So when it comes to investing, when it comes to trading, I like to trade with momentum. I like to know when momentum is gone and get out of there. That's just how, bringing it back to the charts, how I would generally approach that.